How's everyone doing tonight? This is Chopping It Up Hardcore with Hal Capone, discussion number 87. Tonight, my special guest is Mike from the powerhouse, truly underrated hardcore band Purity's Failure from the late 90s to the early 2000s. Also, he was in a band called Lunacy in the mid 90s that basically turned into Purity's Failure. He's in a new project called Spirit Season, which is kind of like an ambient, like Black Sabbath-y / ghost feel to it, on top of a dope graphic designer. I see you, Mike. Hold on one sec. Let's see this, make this thing work here. Hope everybody's well. Hope everybody's cool, staying cool. It's going to be a scorcher this week. I sent the invite. Hopefully it's working. Let's see, we always try. It's always a crapshoot trying to figure this stuff out sometimes. I'll send another one. Hold on one sec. All right, Mike, I'm sending another one. Just accept and we should be good. We're going to make this work. I'm telling you. You might have to update your app. Sometimes that says you're unable to join. You might have to update your app. I don't know if you're trying from a laptop or a computer. It works best with a phone. I'll send another invite. Maybe if there's a little person symbol with a arrow facing this way. If you try to send me an invite, maybe that'll work. I'll try again, sending you one. We'll get this going sooner or later. Can you message me, Mike, on here to see if I can see, like, if you type something? There we go. Perfect.
Yo.
What's going on?
Nothing. Sorry, I was trying to do this on my computer, and it's like, oh, you can't do it.
Yeah, on the computer or like a laptop or something like that, it's rough. For some reason, it doesn't have the app updated when you try that for some weird reason.
Oh, no worries. Hold on one second. Let me just grab my phone's gonna die. All right, 1 second.
Hey, quiet. Sorry, yelling at my dogs.
Yeah. All right, sorry about that.
No problem. If you heard me yell, I was yelling at my dogs to be quiet. They growl at sound that goes by the street for some weird reason.
Nice, no worries. How's it going?
Good. How are you? First off, I want to thank you so much for doing this. Sunday night, family night, sometimes for people. So I appreciate you taking the time out to speak to me about, Purity's Failure, Lunacy, what you got going on now, like the old hardcore days, like everything in between.
Yeah. No, thanks. I didn't know anyone remembered the band, so so I appreciate you reaching out, man, for sure.
Well, that's the thing about Purity's Failure. Every time that I saw Purity's Failure, it was just so exciting to see live, and I really enjoyed it. And obviously, like, I still have this bad boy in my possession still, so it was just special for me to see you guys back in the day. And if you look online, there's nothing about Purity's Failure, which made me want to talk to you even more, to have people kind of go back and try to find stuff from you.
Totally. Dude, I'm sorry. Hold on. I apologize. I kind of poorly planned the phone part of this.
No problem at all.
Oh, gotta get some mood lighting in here. This is like my office. So over COVID, it's like working from home and stuff.
Yeah.
So now I got like my one of the bedrooms in my house has become my office, which is kind of cool, but this is where I do everything. All right, I'm plugged in. Now we should be good now. I hope. Dude, I'm sorry, man.
No problem at all.
All right, I'm ready.
Perfect.
And if I lose you for some reason, it just means my phone died, and I'll come back.
Okay. Yeah, so I was just saying how underrated and there's nothing on the internet about Purity's failure. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think partly like I think we were like never the best at like keeping stuff current and like keeping stuff online, and like I think just like the years kind of go by, and then you like it's just sort of life kind of just like flies by, and it's cool. Like we still are all friends and like we're tight, but it's like, yeah, it was like that part of our lives, and it's always like fun to talk about, but no one has taken any like initiative to kind of really put the stuff like online or do any of that stuff. And like honestly, it's funny, you showed that first album, like I don't even know where my copy of that is. I don't even have like a CD player to play it, you know what I mean? So yeah. I don't know, what does it sound like? Does it sound good?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I was kind of sad that standing outside that CDR and EP that you guys had, that's the first thing you put out, right?
What is it? Which one?
The standing outside wave function, is that what it's called?
Oh yeah, so that was like the first Lunacy CD.
Oh, that was Purity's failure?
I think. No, my bad. That was the demo. My bad. That was the first Purity's demo.
Yeah.
And then I should have done like research before this, because.
Well, I think this was next, and then Extensions was like years after this had come out.
Yeah. Extensions, I know, was like 2003. That was the last thing that we did. That was kind of like an EP.
Yeah.
I think it was like 5 songs on that, and that one that you have there, the CD, that was like the only full length that we did. So. Now,
did you guys ever put out a 7-inch or anything like that, or no?
Never. We never had a 7-inch. We did do like a split 7-inch with it was like a 4-way split that I forget. I think like the original version of Trap Them was on that 7-inch, and then 2 other bands. It's like I'm kind of blanking right now.
Now that sounds familiar. That sounds real familiar.
Yeah, it was called like they were called if I'm not mistaken, I think they were called Trap Them and Kill Them at that point, and then they might have shortened it to Trap Them. So that was and I think that was like there was a song probably from that Deconstruction album, I think, was on that. If it wasn't like it might have been a demo version or something, but that was like I think the only thing we had on vinyl.
Yeah. That Trap Them and Kill Them, they sounded a lot. It was pretty much like when they were Life Passed On, it pretty much turned into Trap Them and Kill Them, and then they kind of cut that off. But that sound, that Life Passed On, that was very similar to that vinyl that you're talking about.
Yeah, totally. Oh man, it's funny, man. I was like, so it feels like such a, I mean, it was a long time ago, but
we're talking 20 plus years, you know what I mean?
Plus. Yeah, it's crazy, man. It's like people like everyone I work with and stuff, like no one even really knows this about my life, really. You know what I mean? So it's kind of funny to like talk about it now.
Yeah, I mean, were you surprised that I got in touch with you?
I'll tell you the honest truth. Like when you first started like posting Purity's failure stuff, I was like, man, I wonder if he'll like ask one of us to, you know, be on his show, you know? And I'm like, oh, I hope he doesn't ask me. Only because, you know, just like, oh, like being nervous or whatever. But then when you did, I was like, cool, you know, like, this is cool. I'm pumped that you did. But, you know, it was like that sort of like, oh, I'm like nervous.
Yeah. Oh, well, I always say that, like, when I first started this, I was super nervous all the time, every time, because I'm not a huge talker. When I was in a band and I went to shows and stuff like that, I never really like talked to strangers that I didn't know. You know, it was like our close clique of people that we went to shows with. So like when I started this, I was nervous, super anxious, and like,
Yeah.
and I kind of, you can tell in the earlier talks that I had, you know, I'm stuttering and doing all kinds of crazy stuff like that. And it kind of worked out better as I kept going on. But I did it to kind of do some, you know, COVID restrictions and stuff like that. So I was like, man, I want to do something different and try to get out of this, like, not talking to people type stuff. And it's
Ooh.
a lot doing this. And plus I get to talk to, you know, people from bands that I love, you know, so it's been awesome.
Yeah. No, I love it, man. I love that, like you said, like, like kind of like stuff that's been forgotten by a lot of people. You know what I mean? So, myself included. But it's cool to, you know, kind of bring back some of those memories and stuff. So yeah, it's awesome. Like, who did I see you had on like recently? I don't know. Like whenever you have like a band, I'm like, damn, I remember that band. I gotta like go find their stuff. You know?
Yeah, and that's kind of the reason why I do this, just to have people remember that time that was a special time for, at least it was a special time for me, and I know it was special for a lot of other people, but that it's just bringing those memories back. And I also talk to like new, you know, new people that are in new great bands too. So I try to mix it up a little bit, but I want people to go back and listen to Purity's Failure and try to search for that stuff again. You know, that's my reasoning, I guess.
That's so cool, man. That's so cool. I appreciate that for sure.
Now, were you born and raised in Massachusetts? Like, where were you brought up?
Yeah, I grew up in Wakefield, so like a couple towns north of Boston. Um, that's where all of us were from. So grew up in Wakefield. So Nate, the bass player, and I, we've been friends since he's still like my best friend. Like, we met when we were like 4 years old. He was my next door neighbor. He lived across the street actually. So, we've been tight like since then. Then I started playing t-ball with, the guitar player, Joe. And then, so I knew all these guys, I knew them all. And then like, it was like literally like we would be doing like paper. I think, you know, Nate and I were doing, we were like on his paper route and we like ran into like Joe and Sean and they're like, yo, we're starting a band. And I was like, yeah, can I sing? Like, I want to sing for the band, you know? And they're like, yeah, sure. And it was like, that's how the band started. And we were like 13 years old when we started. So, you know, it's like, when you're a kid and like you're that young and you know you meet people that are like into the same kind of stuff and it's like that just became that's all we wanted to do, you know. And like we, you know, we pretty much practiced at Joe's house, at his mom's house every single day for like hours. It was just like, you know, instead of like just hanging out at 7-Eleven or whatever, we'd just like play music.
Yeah.
You know, like we started doing like Metallica cover songs and stuff. This was like junior high school.
Yeah.
So, and then we just, you know, kept doing it and we did it until I think like, you know, I was actually talking to my buddy Zach tonight, who was like there from pretty much the very beginning, just like a friend of the band, like roadie kind of person who was just always there, like helping out. Like, and I was like, when did we stop playing? And we couldn't really like, we couldn't pinpoint it, but you know, it was like our whole basically like, you know, adolescence, like just like growing up, like being like the main focus of our lives, really, you know. So
Yeah. Now Lunacy, that was Lunacy, right?
that was Lunacy, yeah. And I think, you know, like then like we were in high school and it was kind of like it was cool, like, you know, we were like one of the high school one of like the only kind of like heavy high school bands And it was like exciting for like, you know, we'd play like a show in Wakefield and like the whole school would go kind of thing, you know? So it's like, this is awesome. And so of course, like we gotta write more songs. We gotta like play, you know, outside of Wakefield kind of thing, you know? And that was like the goal. That was really like the only goal, like when we started. It's like we got to play in, you know, whatever. I think our first show outside of Wakefield was in like Salem, Mass. You know, at like a coffee house, like a coffee shop. So, and then I think though, you know, eventually we were like, oh, we want to change the name because it was like we were sort of doing like different stuff. We kind of got into like more. You know, different kinds of like hardcore and stuff. I think really like we started, you know, seeing these other local bands, like, you know, like outside of what was kind of happening, like in our immediate kind of town and like very like, you know, super regional like scene for lack of a better word. And it was like, oh my God, like, you know, some of these bands are just like, so to us, we're just like so amazing, like over the top. So it's like, we got to like get to the next level. And I think we kind of thought like, well, we should like change the name because what we're doing now is like kind of different, you know?
Yeah.
Even though in retrospect, it's like we should have just kept the same name and like just continued. Because I think when we did change the name, like a lot of the people that were, you know, that were into us were like, what the hell? Like, why did you change the name? You know, but
Yeah. Well, that's
you know.
That's why I asked you, because I remember Lunacy, and then I could have, I was like, it's been so far that I was like, I'm pretty sure Lunacy was Purity's Failure, but I didn't want to like say it and then be like, oh, wrong, you know what I mean? Because Lunacy, when I first saw Lunacy, did you guys play Safe and Sound in Rochester?
Yeah. We played there a couple times.
Yeah, I think that was the first time that I saw Lunacy, and then I saw Lunacy at the Zayo show with Fault and Dead Eyes Under and Piecemeal and
yeah,
forget who else played that show, but that was a really good show though. That was amazing.
totally. Yeah, that was sick. Like Zayo, like we all loved that album. Like where Blood and Fire Bring Rest. Like that was like our jam. All of us, we loved that. So like playing with them was cool. Like, but yeah, like that show. Oh, and did you see the show? We did another show with them. I think it was like Zayo, Today Is the Day, Nile played. It was at the Middle East.
No, I don't think I did go to that show.
Yeah, that was actually I don't even think we were 18 at the time. So it was
Really?
like, yeah, so it was like, oh, like they didn't even want to let us in, but it's like we're playing the show. You know, I think we were like 17. So
Yeah, not the only time I saw Nile was at the St. John's, like the Relapse show.
Neurosis.
Yeah, that was like crazy. That was a crazy show.
Yeah, that's like I feel like everyone in New England was at that show, and the people that weren't there, it's like, oh man, I missed that one.
Yeah, seriously, that was like one of the like best shows that I've been to. Talking back about Lunacy though, I'm trying to figure out when like who you played with at Safe and Sound, because Safe and Sound for me, because I'm from New Hampshire. I lived in Haverhill, Massachusetts for a long time too, but basically I'm from New Hampshire. So Safe and Sound was like, you know, that and Cafe Savoy was like my go-to when I was living in New Hampshire as a kid. Do you remember who you played with at Safe and Sound?
I know one time we played there a couple times. The one that I can remember was like One King Down.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was like when like they had the other singer for like an album.
Yeah.
It wasn't
Oh,
Rob.
it wasn't Rob.
No, it was like someone else. I forget, but like it was still like an awesome show. Like I think we opened that one.
Yeah.
And actually, shit, I'm pretty sure. See, these are like some of this stuff. Like don't take. It may not be 100% accurate. These are just sort of everything I'm gonna tell you is just like that's how I kind of remember it. But it could be wrong. But I'm pretty sure like that. Humans Being. Did you ever see them?
No, I wish.
Those guys were from Wakefield too.
Yeah.
And they played that show. And that may have been like how we got on that show, actually. Like they may have been like, oh, there's this band from our town, like you should let them play kind of thing.
Yeah.
Because actually, yeah, Humans Being was you know, kind of going back to the beginning of Lunacy, like those guys were from Wakefield, and we kind of looked up to them. They were like a couple years older than us, and it was like, holy shit, like this is awesome. Like it was actually, we all went to the Middle East to see like a matinee show. One Joe, the guitar player's cousin, they like her and her friend, they like brought us to the Middle East in Cambridge to see this matinee, and Humans Being was playing, and Point oh Four, who ended up a couple of those guys started Unearth.
Oh, no kidding. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was like, wow, this is cool. Like we got to do this. And so we kind of like, that was huge for us, like being kids. And Cafe Savoy. I don't remember Cafe Savoy. Someone commented.
Yeah. Yeah. Like One King Down. I know I went to 2 shows at Safe and Sound where they played, and Rob was singing both times. So that's weird that they played 3 times there. That's wild. I missed the third one if he wasn't singing, because I know I went to 2 of them where he was singing. It was like crazy too. There was like so many people. Like it was a madhouse when they played. But
I could be wrong too. Maybe he was singing. I don't know. Like but I'm pretty sure it was for that album. But it was packed too, you know. Yeah. So like I'm not 100% sure. And there were a few other times that we played up there, but I'm like totally blanking on like who played.
Yeah.
Or if we played, or if I just like went up there for something, you know, like, because that was like another thing too, to be like, yo, we're going to New Hampshire for a show, and I'm like, okay. I didn't even know. It's like, you know, an hour and a half later, it's like, where is this place? I'm thinking like Salem, New Hampshire, you know?
Yeah. I mean, back then it was such a great time though, with all the venues like Massachusetts and Providence and New Hampshire and Maine. I mean, you had Zoots, you had in New Hampshire, Zoots in Maine, and then in New Hampshire you had Cafe Savoy, you had Cafe Eclipse in Concord, you had Safe Sound, then, you know, UFI Coffee House in Haverhill.
Yeah. We played there a lot, actually.
Yeah, I might have seen you guys played there too as well. And then, you know, Massachusetts, obviously, Espresso Bar and the Space, in Middle East, stuff like that. So, and Providence was the Living Room, and kind of before that was Club Babyhead. But like at that time, even like Connecticut was booming at that time too. It was like there was a show every 4 to 5 days, and it was always a packed lineup back then. What kind of bands did you like back then that you kind of, you know, looked up to when you started to play, you know, all these shows that you guys were playing?
Yeah, I mean, yeah. So I guess in like I was saying, in the early days, it was kind of like these bands that like were sort of like local or whatever. Because I think, you know, being young, we were like 13, and it was like, you know, Pantera and like Metallica, Sepultura, like that was when we were into more like, you know, the mainstream bands and stuff. And it was like, I think I remember like the first time all of us, we went to the Space in Worcester, and it was like the first time we all saw Converge. It was like Converge, Cave In, and ISIS and Cavity, I think. And like that really, like that show, I think really kind of changed the course of the band. Because I think like I said before that, it was like, oh, the heaviest thing we'd ever heard was like Sepultura, you know what I mean? And then it was like seeing Converge in the way that like the audience just went fucking crazy. Like we're like, we gotta get on that, you know, like we gotta be at that level kind of thing, as far as like intensity and like the complexity of the music and stuff. And I think that was really like kind of getting into the like that kind of Hydra Head, that kind of like those kind of bands really sort of opened up a lot for us, and like, you know, just kind of shaped a lot of what we were trying to do, at least, you know. So yeah, just like Cave In, I think I've probably seen Cave In like more than any other band. Yeah. You know, because they're local, obviously, and like they played all the awesome shows back then.
Yeah.
And they were awesome. So like that was like seeing that kind of thing. It was just like amazing for us, and it kind of like gave us something else to like really like aspire to, you know.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, all those New England bands were really incredible back then. Converge, obviously, Cave In, and then I was a big fan of Die My Will and uh,
Yeah.
Dead Eyes Under, Fleshhold before they became Dead Eyes Under. Non Compost Mentis was
Oh yeah.
like I loved seeing them live all the time. That
Uh,
was, and
yeah,
plus,
you reminded me of that. Like that was seeing Non Compos Mentis back then was just like so cool. Um, oh yeah.
like Polyglot was like I loved seeing Polyglot back in the day, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
I was good friends with the Fault and the Ukla the Mock guys, and when my first band was two of the guys from Ukla the Mock played in this band Last House on the Left that we did kind of like a small demo and stuff like that. They kind of
Okay.
fizzled out, and then later on I was in a band called High School Sweethearts with the original guitar player Fault. So it was like
Okay.
so.
Did we ever play shows together?
No, nope. Like High School Sweethearts, like basically always played Exit 23 when that was
Okay.
going on all the time, and then we played like Connecticut and like little small shows, and like we played a show in Plasto and like just like pretty much local stuff. We didn't,
Yeah, yeah.
but
We did Exit 23 a lot too. Like that was kind of like I can't really remember many of the shows, but like I feel like I remember like going there a lot. Um, Actually, a cool show there, like one that I always kind of remember, just because it was like, I mean, thinking about it now is crazy, but like it was Mastodon. This is an Exit 23. Mastodon, Red Chord, and like a band on Relapse called Halo. I think it was like Mastodon and them were touring, and then some other band that I forget. They were like another local band, but it was like in that tiny room seeing Mastodon.
yeah,
And we had known about them just because of Today Is the Day, like the Bran and Bill were in Today Is the Day, and we loved Today Is the Day.
yeah.
So we were pumped, and I think actually we had a couple shows with them that like for a weekend or something, and it was like I remember just seeing like them play March of the Fire Ants from the Leviathan album, and it was like this band's gonna be huge, just like it was crazy.
Well, the video that I put from you guys in Cambridge, didn't Mastodon play that show? It was There Were Wires, Mastodon,
Oh,
and you guys.
okay. So I didn't know where that show was. I was like, yo, where is this from? I had no idea.
Yeah,
So yeah. That was that weekend.
It was the Hideaway in Cambridge, Massachusetts, which like that was the only show I ever went to there.
Yeah, same.
And I didn't even,
Yeah.
at that time I didn't even know who Mastodon was. And when they played, I was like, "Whoa, who's this band?" I'm like, "I've never heard of." And I'm pretty sure they played before you and There Were Wires.
I think it was us, Mastodon, then There Were Wires, because I remember them going on after us, because I think they bought randomly. I remember this because I think like they borrowed like some gear of ours or something like that. So it was like we just kept I remember keeping some of our stuff like on the stage or whatever, the floor or whatever. So
Oh, that was weird. Yeah, I thought they played before you guys. That was a great show, though. I mean, I'm glad I got to. It's funny. I didn't know who they were, so I never recorded them. I just recorded Purity's Failure and There Were Wires.
yeah, dude, imagine, and it's like, whoa, like 20 something years later, it's like Mastodon's like the biggest metal band still now, So
Yeah, what's up, Jeb? Jeb's in here from there.
oh, dude, I'm representing Jeb right now.
I love that shirt. I bought that shirt too.
Oh, sick.
There
Yeah,
Were Wires. Their Wires was very special to me too. Definitely.
same. Those guys were like, I think like once we started playing more and like as Purity's Failure, like those guys were sort of like one of our like brother bands. What up, Jeb? And yeah, I love all those guys still to this day. I actually just got tattooed by Jeb, which it's my favorite tattoo, by the way, Jeb. He's awesome. He's an awesome guy, like musician and tattooer. So
Yeah. I talked to Jamie like very early on one of my talks. Like,
oh, sick.
I don't know if you ever saw that, but yeah.
I didn't see that one, but I'll definitely go back and check it out.
I also wanted to talk about Fuckfest. When
Okay.
the other video that I took of you guys.
Yeah.
What how was that weekend for you? And were you at the first day? I know you guys played the second day, but were you at the first?
I don't know. No. I don't remember. Honestly, that was one I kind of don't remember. I remember the show. I remember, obviously, like Fuckfest. Like, how can you forget that? But like, I don't like remember much about it. I don't really remember who played. I think we were kind of like, we were sort of like out of our element. I think at that show, you know, like in a way, it was a little bit more of like a little bit more towards like the screamo stuff, and maybe we were a little bit more towards kind of like metal. I don't know, you know, 'cause like back then it was sort of. I don't remember who even played. Who do you remember?
Yeah, I think that the day you guys played, one of the first bands that I saw was My Life with Their Ghosts, which is similar
Yeah.
to
Okay.
your, and then it was like Crestfallen had played there, Usurp Synapse, Neil Perry, Joshua Fit for Battle, shit, who else played? Uh, damn, I can't think of who else played. But and then the first day was uh, As the Sun Sets, but like right before they turned into Daughters. It was like
Okay.
it was pretty much like almost like one of their last shows as the Sun Sets.
Uh,
Trillium Barnacle Labs played that first day too, and that was right before they turned it kind of like with all the electronics and stuff like that. They were more of a screamo band before, like that was kind of like their last bit of being like a screamo band. Um,
okay.
and I think Moment played that first too.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we played with Bowman a ton too. We love those guys too. Yeah, that makes sense then.
Yeah,
So some couple of friends like a lot in those bands for sure. But I
some
do remember thinking like, yo, I don't think anyone here likes us. You know, like I just think we're sort of like an odd band for that show, you know.
well,
That's just sort of how I
I don't know.
remember it.
I don't know. I think like if you watch the crowd, they seem to be like really into it.
Yeah.
You watch those videos. My camera, I had one of those big cameras, so I was
Yeah.
always plugging it into the wall socket to try and charge it because I'm like, oh shit, my battery's gonna run out. So I only recorded 2 songs from you guys, and like I tried to record a little less. I wanted to get throughout the whole day, so I kept plugging it in because my battery was like shitting the bed. But yeah, that was the struggle back then when you had a big camera and
Yeah. Imagine now it's like you just bring your iPhone, you know?
yeah,
But like there's something cool about the quality of your videos. It's like I love seeing that, you know, like the old school, like just kind of like grainy, like
yeah,
it's really cool. Like it's kind of like I said, like the one that you had posted the other day. I'm like, well, I have no idea like where this is. I don't like remember that at all, really. I didn't even know if I knew what song that was. I was trying to like figure. I wanted to ask some of the other guys like in the band, like, hey, like, dude, what song is this? What is it from? But
yeah.
it's just like kind of like, yeah, I don't know.
Well, you know what I can do? I can put that whatever I have from that show, I can put on my YouTube channel, and I'll do that in the next like couple weeks. I think the 2 songs from Fuckfest are already on my channel, but I'll put that Hideaway show. I think there's probably maybe 4 songs from that. That's it. At first, it's like I'm videotaping you from straight on behind the crowd, and then I sneak around where you saw the one that I posted the other day, where I'm like right next to the band.
Okay. Yeah. No, that's amazing. I think like my dad came to a couple of shows and like videotaped a few of them like way back. So like there's not a ton of stuff that I have, you know, from that time period. So it's like really cool to see that stuff. So
Yeah. Somebody wrote, "Didn't Usurp Synapse have some woman dancing on the amp while they played?" Yes, they did. And if you see it, it's on my channel because
uh,
I recorded it.
that's awesome.
um,
I don't remember that.
yeah, she was in a cheerleading outfit.
That's awesome.
But yeah, that show was really good. And like I said, I know you said you were kind of out of your element, but I didn't think so. I mean, from the crowd reaction and me videotaping and loving Purity's Failure, I thought you guys went off pretty swimmingly at that fest.
Oh, that's great. Yeah. I mean, who knows? It could have been anything. Like, I don't know. I just, that was sort of like a memory I had about that, thinking like, oh, it's kind of like a different crowd. Maybe not, we're not going over, but that's good to know.
Now, I wanted to talk about Goodfellow Records and how you guys got to that, because when I
Yeah.
first heard about Goodfellow Records, it was the what was the comp they had? The difference between us comp. Do you remember that comp? It was like came out in like maybe '97. It had Torn Apart, like Disembodied, Left for Dead, like a bunch of bands. It was like a pretty like really good comp that they put out. And then I noticed that you guys jumped on that label. How did that happen? Because they're a Canadian label, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So, yeah, like that was crazy. Like, I think how that sort of came up was a couple of bands that we were pretty tight with. Unearth was one of them, and then I think don't quote me on this, but like I think it was like the Red Chord as well. I think they were sort of, both those bands were kind of like talking to Goodfellow about like a possible deal, and I think it was the kind of thing where I think that was when they both maybe signed to Metal Blade. I don't know. So they kind of were like, they got like a bigger deal or whatever, but they must have like said to Chris, hey, like there's this band from Massachusetts that's like really good, whatever.
Yeah.
And then that's kind of how we started like a communication with Chris and Goodfellow. And so then actually this is like one of my stories, one of my like life stories actually that has to do with Goodfellow. But so like we went up there. He invited us to play a show in Ontario. That's like where they were located, and we're like, nice, like yeah, well that'll be great, you know. We never had played like out of the U.S. before, you know what I mean? So we thought it would be a great opportunity. Whatever, we knew they were kind of like interested based on just the conversation. So we're like, yeah, we'll go up there. So we drive up to Ontario, and then we get to the border, and they're like, do you have working papers for to get here? And we're like, no. We're playing a show. We're a band. We're like a small band. Like, there's not, there was like, no, we didn't have like a guarantee or anything. It was just sort of like, we're going to go play a show.
Yeah.
But they're like, yeah, you have to have the right papers to like be up here. And we're like, oh, okay. So we had gone the night before. We drove up the night before, and so we're like, shit, what do we do? So we like go, and we got like a hotel in Niagara Falls, and we call up Chris, and we're like, hey, like they won't let us through. We didn't know anything about this working papers. Like, what should we do?
Yeah.
And so whatever. So we end up the next day. We're like, screw it. We're gonna just try again. We're gonna say we're on tour, and that we're like cutting through to Detroit or something. Like, oh, we just played, somewhere, wherever, and now we're just cutting through to Detroit. This is just like the quickest route. And so we didn't have any problem. We got through and played the show, and it was like amazing. Like I guess like he must have like passed out our demo to like kids in the area.
Yeah.
And it was like people were singing the songs and stuff. And we were like, whoa, like we have more people that are into us here than like Boston, And so that was sort of like the beginning of that relationship, and it was like, this is great. That's how we kind of like started that relationship. And but so where the Canada thing comes in is like, I forget at what stage this was. I don't know if our album had come out or what, but eventually we got invited to play this like festival that was, shit, I forget. I don't know if it was Montreal or like somewhere in like a different part of Canada. And I think we actually had gone up there a couple times, and it was awesome. We like loved it in Ontario. It was great. But then once we went up to this like other part of Canada, we had to go through Vermont, and we're like, yo, like there's no one. There's like in Niagara Falls, it's like thousands of cars coming in and out, and like they don't have the time to like to tear your van apart and like search the van and all this. So but we got a little nervous. We're like, yo, this is not I don't know, like, is this gonna be cool? So sure enough, like they're like, pull the van over, So they pull the van over and like go through the whole van. And so we're sitting there, we're like, shit, what are we gonna do? So then like one of the border patrol guy comes up with like a backpack, and they're like, whose backpack is this? And it was Nate, the bass player, and at the time he was like the only kind of like pothead like of the group. And we're like, dude, are you fucking serious? Like, did you bring weed here or whatever? He's like, no. So it turned out it was Tylenol. It was like pills in like a pill bottle that was like Tylenol or Advil or something.
Yeah.
But they had searched the van, and they actually, this is like before the internet really, like, but we had a website that had the dates. Oh, Nate's on. Nate would remember this. So yeah, so like they had found on like our like one-page website that we kind of had a show booked there, and they're like, you guys, what is this? Like, you have shows here? And we're like, oh yeah, sorry. And we're thinking like, damn, we just drove like 5 hours for nothing. We're going home. This sucks. We got to like cancel this and it was actually a fest with like Every Time I Die was playing. I remember that. Like it was like a big show. We were like really pumped about it.
Yeah.
And but no, like that was like that border station's work for the day was like busting us. So we actually got put in jail for the night. And we got banned from Canada for 5 years. So yeah, so like we spent a night in jail, and we had to pay like a $5,000 fine, and then got banned for 5 years. And we like basically that kind of fucked up our relationship with Goodfellow, because we couldn't go up there, you know, and it was like we couldn't really do a lot, and that really sort of like, it was a bummer, you know. It was like totally like a bummer for us. But yeah, so I can always tell people I've been banned from Canada like at one point, you know. So
you guys got banned from Canada for a little vial of Tylenol.
No, so sorry. So the crime that we committed was deceiving a border official.
Oh, by saying you.
Yeah. So we lied to the border guy, and like that was the crime. So yeah, and it was crazy, man. Like that was like a crazy day, because, you know, we got bused to like this jail. They're all French speaking. So they're talking in French. We can't understand them. We're all standing in a circle, like naked, like being strip searched. They're like, lift up your foot, you know, like, I don't know, like making sure we didn't have anything like in our butts. You know what I mean? Yeah. And it was just like so bizarre. And yeah, it was just like a crazy experience. But then, like, you know, it was just one night, but like I had to share a cell with like some criminal. Nate, I think, had to share a cell with someone random, and then the other guys, I think they were all together. Zach was there, who was laughing about it. Zach was with us, and yeah, so that was that was probably like the craziest thing that happened to us as a band, like just getting, you know, banned from a country for, you know, half a decade.
Yeah. Now, did Purity's Failure go on like a U.S. tour?
So we did like small things. We never did like a full U.S. tour. We went like up and down the coast, the East Coast a couple times. Actually, it was like, I think it was Daughter's first tour. And we were on like the first 10 days or so, I think, of that tour. And it was like them, and it was like right when they changed the name, when they became Daughters, and it was them and Examination of the. Do you remember that band?
Yep.
So that was such a cool experience, like being out with those guys. And
oh shit! Now that you say that, did you play like the Salem Elks Club, where Daughters and Examination of them played that show in Salem? Did you guys play that show?
I'm not sure, honestly,
because I saw those guys together, and it must have been the beginning of that tour, because it was in like a weird little Salem Elks Club, Salem, Massachusetts Elks Club. I don't know if you guys played that show or not. I'm so old, and like I've been so many shows, and It just kind of, you know.
Same. I mean, a lot of it sort of like blends together, you know, and like, cause I do remember too, like, I remember Exam came back like a while, like a couple years, might have been years later. And we played that Boston show, but I think that was at,
Oh, was that at the ICC?
yeah.
Oh, I was at that too. Gee,
Okay, cool. Yeah.
I've seen you guys more than I thought I did.
Yeah. And that was sick. Like, Exam were like the coolest guys. Like, they're so cool. I wish I like kept in contact with those guys. It was hard too, because it's like, you know, it's like I think we had cell phones, but it's not like, you know, you can't like there was no Facebook or no Instagram to like reconnect with people. And it's like I think I do follow Dustin, but I don't know. Hey, remember me from that like week, like 20 something years ago? Maybe he would, because we did have like some funny times, but like, I don't know.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Dustin, because I had talked to him too as well.
Oh, sick. Okay.
Yeah.
I think actually that's how I think I found him, maybe through you then.
Yeah.
Because I sort of like, I don't even know. I just like, it's not like I forgot about that time, but I didn't like think to like find those guys really, you know what I mean? But I think I saw that you were interviewing him, so I checked out what he was up to. He's still doing music and stuff. So
yeah. He's doing that like kind of like the sound, like visual, like you know, electronic, really visual and audio and the whole performance. You know what I mean? He does, it's pretty powerful stuff.
Totally. Yeah. No, I'm pumped that a lot of those people from back then still continue to do stuff now. You know what I mean? It's awesome. It's really good, because those guys were like so cool. Like they were so, like they kind of had that like Neurosis kind of like ISIS thing back then, and like, but like their own, you know, obviously like their own version of it. But like, I loved like their whole vibe was awesome.
Yeah, it's funny too, because they kind of evolved into that. It was like their first album was very chaotic-y, screamy, screamo-ish type stuff, real fast, like Daughters-ish type of stuff, and then they turned into like the slow, sludgy, like powerful Neurosis type, you know, long songs and stuff like that,
Totally.
which I dig both, you know, styles.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like I know I like their old stuff, but then I loved what they kind of became, like you said, like that kind of like that like slow sort of like repetitive. Like I love that stuff. Like I love like Neurosis. Like they're probably my all-time favorite band. So like I loved the bands that were sort of like obviously inspired by them, but sort of like taking it in like a slightly different direction, but like having their own thing, you know, like ISIS, you know, like I loved what they did, and like they became their own thing, you know what I mean? So
I kind of wanted to touch on Their Wires.
yeah.
We're alluding that there could be a reunion of Their Wires coming up in the near future. I know Jamie and Jeb like kind of were alluding to this possibly. Is there any chance that Purity's Failure would ever jump on a show and do a reunion with them?
I mean, I don't know. Like that really hasn't ever come up. If those dudes were like, "Yo, would you do this?" I would definitely like. I would be 100% interested. You know, but like, I don't know. Like so it's myself, Joe, the guitar player, Joe Thomas, Nate Chapman, bass player. We like live like in like right in the same area. We always hang out. I mean, we all have like lives and like families and stuff now, that jobs that are just kind of like prevent us from getting together as much as we would like, you know. But and we do, you know, we'll hang and we'll like, you know, mess around on guitar and like, you know, trade music and stuff like that. So I would be totally down, but I think like the old drummer, like he lives in New York City. Like he was kind of the one who sort of like lost interest first, and like I don't know really if he would be down, and that's kind of like why Purity sort of like ended like kind of abruptly, because he just didn't want to do it, which was totally cool. Like it was, you know, it was. Yeah, I obviously at the time, you know, I'm sure I took it personally, but looking back, it's like I know it wasn't anything personal. It was like we're all sort of at this stage in our life where it was like, okay, are we going to do this? Or are we going to like you know, I think I had a full-time job. I was already kind of starting my career at that time, and it was like the band was definitely not like number one priority. So I 100% now looking back, I get it. But he moved to Portland, Oregon eventually. Um, but yeah, like I don't know. I don't know. Like I don't know if I could convince him. We're still tight. We're still friends, you know. Sean, the drummer, but I don't know. And okay, anyway, my point was that when he left, we considered, we're like, we should like continue, you know, like we still love playing music together, the three of us, like we should continue doing this. And we tried to we're gonna like try, PF reunion. That's my wife. Is she gonna let me like rehearse like once a week? No, I don't know. But anyway, what was I gonna say? Oh, so we tried out like somebody, and it just like didn't feel right. You know what I mean? Like it just was like, because like I said, we started playing together when I think I had just turned 13. I think most of those guys were still like 12 years old.
Yeah.
And we were like, and it was like we just sort of had like our like a language between each other, like a musical thing, that it was like having somebody else back on the drums. It was just like this, and they were good, like they were great drummers, whatever. But it was just, it just felt really like a lot of tiptoeing around. It was just like, it felt weird. And I think like at that time it was kind of like, fuck it, like I have got a job, like we all had jobs, we were like doing our own things. And it was like, I think at that time too, it was like probably like all drinking a lot and stuff, and like let's just go out and like party and talk about like someday like starting a band or whatever, you know. But who knows, like if there was I don't know. If he was if the drummer was like, yo, I'm down 100%, I would, there'd be nothing. I would be totally down to do it, but we'd have to like talk to him.
Yeah.
I haven't talked
now,
to him
in your vocals, how would your vocals be? Since I mean, I am assuming it's been a while since you screamed like that. So
yeah.
Now,
I mean, honestly, it's funny. It's like over the years I've done other stuff like here and there, like little things, nothing that really like came to anything like real. You know, I've played a couple shows with like a couple bands. You had mentioned the Spirit Season thing. That was more recent. But I think it would be kind of similar, you know, like I tried to sort of like, oh, let me kind of like do something a little bit more melodic, like sing a little bit. Cause like, I really like, I appreciate like vocalists that can like sing, but also just have that like powerful kind of like,
yeah,
you know, but then can carry a tune or whatever. But like, my thing was always sort of like yelling. And like, I think I did it pretty good. So like, I would try. It would depend on what the music was, you know what I mean? Like the Spirit Season thing was cool. That's actually like, that was my friend Steve Lord. He that was like a project that he just asked me to contribute a couple things to.
yeah,
And you know, at the time I was like, yeah, of course, like I would love to do something. And like it was during pretty much like the height of COVID. So it was like I was at home, like I had GarageBand, you know, I have a microphone, so it's like, let me try this. And like, he's like, I want to get it out before Halloween. And this was like a week before Halloween or something. And I'm like, I'll do my best, you know?
yeah.
So I think I did it on 2 songs, and I was like, yo, I was like, this actually sounds pretty cool.
Yeah.
You know, I know in the past, even with Purity's Failure, I'd be like, ugh, like hearing my voice, you know what I mean? I'd kind of be like, it's not exactly like where I want it to be, or I would like it to be something that it's not. But I was pretty pumped with that stuff because it was fun. I think, you know, another thing with PF, it was like we sort of like took ourselves like pretty seriously, like a lot, which just, I don't know, it was just kind of like we have to be like this kind of band, and or like I don't know, and with, you know, other stuff in like, you know, subsequent years, whatever, it's like this is just for fun. You know, there's nothing like really, there's no stakes involved or anything. Like I'm not trying to like have anybody like be into us, like a fan base or something. So like, I think like taking that approach like now would be kind of cool, but who knows? We'll see.
Yeah,
I would love to continue like something, even if it wasn't like a Purity's Failure reunion. Like doing something like that would be sick, you know. Even I'm 40, you know, like
yeah,
so it would be obviously it would just be like a kind of like a fun thing, but
yeah, yeah, definitely, definitely. Yeah, did I have it right? I mean, I kind of described Spirit Season as like an ambient Black Sabbath slash Ghost type of like vibe to it.
well, yeah, I mean that was kind of I think so. Steve Lord, like he's like an amazing musician. He played like all the instruments basically on that, and it was kind of like his kind of like experiment, you know, just sort of doing like a Halloween kind of like EP.
Yeah,
And yeah, you got it. Like that's kind of how I think, you know, I think Typo Negative. He had some like Typo Negative vibes. Oh, Sean's on. That's a drummer. And so yeah, so yeah, some Black Sabbath vibes, and I kind of just like did my thing, you know. Like I was like, I'll just do what I can do, and it works, you know. Like, and he somehow with like the crappy audio that I gave him from like, you know, GarageBand and like an SM58, like he was able to make it sound cool, you know. So
yeah. Now you're saying though, if you had an opportunity, you would possibly, for a fun aspect of things, like get into a metalcore band again, like or a heavy hardcore band, like kind of having fun with it. You would do that again?
yeah, totally. I mean, and it wouldn't have to be like, you know, metalcore or whatever. It'd be just more like, mainly it'd be like if it were the people that I'm friends with were interested.
Yeah,
Like I said, like me and Joe and Nate, we sometimes get together and just sort of like riff around or whatever, like write some like riffs and things like that. And like actually the drummer from Moment, who's like one of my good friends, like in the past, like over the years, we had like done a couple things, and like, so, you know, it'd be more of like, if like my buddies like wanted to get together and like find time to like make music,
yeah,
and like that, but other than that, it would be like, let's see what happens kind of thing. It wouldn't be like, let's do like a metalcore version of whatever. It would just let's see what happens naturally. You know what I mean?
yeah, definitely.
So,
Yeah. Now,
yeah.
were you a big Moment fan back then?
Oh yeah.
That was huge. Moment. Like John Howard is a great guy. I'd always see him at like the heavier shows. Me and him would always be standing next to each other at like the most heavy shows and stuff like that. Plus, I saw him a bunch of times too, which I really, really enjoyed back then.
Actually, one of those small tours that we did was with Moment, and it was like, it was so cool. Like we knew them, you know, because I think some like Their Wires like shared a couple of guys, like before they were Their Wires, maybe they like shared some guys who ended up in Moment, or I forget exactly, but like, so they sort of had this like crew of people like that were at all their shows, and so like, you know, we got to kind of know those guys, and John actually sang vocals on one of the songs on our last album.
Oh, no kidding. Didn't know that.
Yeah. And that was always like kind of like a fun song to play live, because like you said, he was like always at the show. So he'd be like, yo, do you want to come up and sing this? Like we wouldn't even like talk about it. It was like, yeah, like,
yeah.
So, but Matt, like after Purity's Failure broke up, after Moment broke up, like him and I actually would like we'd hang out a lot, like because actually we went to Mass College of Art together. He was a film student and I went for graphic design, and we had like a film class together. It was so cool because we would just sit in class and like we'd watch a movie, like a sick movie, like some like classic movie, you know?
Yeah.
And that was the class, and then we'd have to come to the next class with like a paragraph about what we thought about the movie. So it was like, oh, we're in this class together. So then we kind of started hanging out, and so like I said, over the years we've kind of like, we tried to do some stuff, and it just like, you know, it never like really went anywhere. But like he's like one of those guys that like, unfortunately I don't get to see him as much as I would like, but he is like one of my best friends that when we do see each other, it's like no time has passed, you know? So, I love that dude. So yeah.
Now, were you surprised that I sent you that picture of the Lunacy demo cassette? Because Tim, the drummer of Fault, who later went on to the network, he was like, oh, I have that demo, I think, and he sent me the picture of it, and
That's crazy. That's crazy because there weren't a lot of those made. I know that. That wasn't like something that we I don't know, maybe we like got them made or I'm not sure. I think we just like, high speed dubbed like 50 copies or whatever,
Yeah.
But I think that was the last thing that we did as Lunacy. And it was like, we were all super pumped on it. Like the music that was on that stuff, to us, it seemed like such a huge leap from that first album that we, like those songs we wrote when we were like 12.
Yeah.
So it felt like we're like a different band. And I think there's 3 songs on that demo. So like, yeah, I haven't heard those songs in a while. I think I got the CDR somewhere, but again, like I don't even have a CD player, so I'd have to put it in like a PlayStation or something
Yeah.
to listen to it. But
Now, do you have all of your stuff, or you don't have all your stuff that you put out? Like, do you have? Obviously, you said you didn't have this.
So I think I do have that stuff. It's just like when I moved into the house that I'm in now, like all my CDs cases are in like the basement packed, so like they're in there somewhere. It's just, at that time, I think we moved in here like 9 years ago.
Yeah.
And since then, I haven't really like dug through my CDs. But it is the kind of thing. Actually, Nate was on vacation and he sent like a group chat of like the first Lunacy CD. I think he was like with his family and like in Maine or something, and they might have had a copy of the CD up there. And it was like, oh man, like. So I think I have everything, but there's definitely like a couple of demos that, like I think, like I said, Nate, like he's got everything somewhere. He was talking about demos that I don't even remember. He's like, remember like the 2 songs you recorded at like this radio station? I'm like, no, I don't even remember that. I don't think I have that or have any like recollection of what the songs were, because I don't think we like played them live or anything really. So there's a couple things that like I don't have, but I do think I've got like all the demos and like that we kind of like sold and all the CDs and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And that 7-inch I have.
Well, I was gonna push that. You got like the standing outside, a wave function and extensions, because this is on Spotify already.
Yeah.
Somehow, but I want all of the Purity's Failure on Spotify. So can somebody make that happen in the?
I'll try. I think most of the guys are on here listening. So
yeah, or like make a Purity's Failure Bandcamp. You know what I mean? Because literally, when people go back to search, you guys live a bunch of times. I've listened to your music a bunch of times, but people that haven't, that want to hear you guys, like this is the only thing they can hear, which is amazing. But I feel like they should have the whole catalog to like listen to, because you guys evolved a little bit. You know what I mean? It got a lot tighter as things went on. You know what I mean? So can that happen somehow?
Yeah. No, I mean, no, it's good to know that at least one person is interested. Oh, Nate's going to dig it up. But I kind of just felt like, oh, no one's interested. You know what I mean? Like, I feel like we're always kind of those like self-deprecating sort of like, no one even likes us. You know what I mean? And that probably like continues on to like today. Cause like, yeah, I should make like an Instagram or something like that. And like old photos and stuff like that. You know?
Photos and like flyers and stuff like that. On my story, I don't know if you looked at my stories, but there was like a bunch of like old pictures, and then there was a flyer that you guys played with Dungeon Bat and somebody else, and there was a There Were Wires flyer with you guys on it too as well, and just a bunch of random pictures and stuff like that, and the Lunacy tape as well. So if you didn't see my stories, just like click through it real quick.
Yeah. I saw the Lunacy tape. I didn't see the other stuff, so I'll definitely check that out. But no, that's awesome. Like, maybe I will do that because, I mean, just talking to you about it, it's like, oh man, there were a lot of like good times, and like you said, like there's some like cool music too, like, that I would like to hear again. Like, oh, was that any good? Does it hold up at all now? Like, I'll check it. I'll have to check it out.
Well, I mean, us New Hampshire kids definitely enjoyed Lunacy and Purity's Failure. I know that for a fact. The Fault guys and Ookla guys like really liked Purity's Failure and Lunacy. I don't know if you play. You probably played. Well, you played with Fault at the Elvis Room, but I don't know if you played with Ookla the Mock. Did you guys play with them at all?
I I'm pretty sure we must have, because like I think like a couple of us had that album. I remember like the album, like the painting, like that weird kind of like monster guy. Like I don't know.
Yeah,
It might,
it was on Life Sentence. It was like the excessive
yeah,
force, like and Grimlock was on
yeah,
Life
yeah,
Sentence.
yeah. So we must have like, I know we like were into them, you know. But again, it's like I don't really remember exactly. But yeah, like I totally remember Fault, obviously, and Ookla. So
Yeah. Did you guys play with the Network once the Network became?
yeah, yeah. Did they play the Mastodon show at Haverhill?
They
Was it? There was like one other band, I forget. No, I remember playing with them a couple times, and like all this stuff is sort of like blending together. Like you had mentioned My Life with Their Ghost, and I was like, oh my god, like that was like a period of a lot of like a ton of shows we played with them too.
yeah.
I wonder if they played those shows. I'm not sure, honestly.
My Life with Her Ghost was from Lawrence, right? I think
Yeah,
Lawrence. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. We played with them a lot. Like, I'm trying to remember like everybody in the band. My Life with Their Ghost. Yeah, I remember playing with them in like a shed one time. It was like legit like a shed in someone's like backyard. So we pulled up to the venue. It was like in the dead of winter, and we're like, okay, there's like, you know, table saws and stuff, and like it was like tools on the wall. We're like, okay, and it was like 20 degrees.
Yeah.
But yeah, we did a lot of shows. They kind of invited us a lot to Lawrence. So I remember playing with them a lot in Lawrence, and like, you know, like whatever VFWs and stuff like that.
It's always the Lawrence VFW, like right under the the highways. Like pretty much you'd get off the ramp and it was right there on the right. Almost you could see the highways off
Yep.
there.
Yeah, yeah. I kind of have a memory of like I think it was someone in My Life with Their Ghost. Someone gave them like a drink of something, and there was like alcohol in it, and that guy was straight edge, I think, and he got like so upset. I just like have that like vague memory, but I could be wrong again. That might not even have been My Life with Their Ghost. But yeah, it was like so many funny, like that wasn't funny, obviously. Like that was kind of like that was a bummer, but it's just like just popped into my head. But yeah, so and I just remember like that was at that where you had described that Lawrence place, you know, with like the highway and stuff. So
Yeah, it's crazy. It's weird to look back on times like that. I forget so much stuff and shows that I went to where my friends are like, "Oh, you went to that show," and I'd be like, "I don't even remember." Like you were saying, I was like, "I don't even remember going to that show or that lineup." And then they'll be like, "Look, there's a picture of me and you standing here," and I was like, "Oh shit!" Like
yeah,
It's just so crazy. I mean, I just turned 50 in January, so it's I've been going to shows for a long, long time.
yeah. No, oh wow, that's awesome. Yeah, so like, yeah, I feel the same way. It's like stuff kind of blends together. Like, was I so someone will be like, yeah, we went together, and I'm like, I don't remember, but there's just too many,
Yeah.
There's certain things I like remember very clearly, but then like, and it's weird because a lot of them are like like really early days, probably because they just really made like an imprint, But then sort of like maybe in the middle where it was like, if I wasn't playing a show, it was like I was going to shows, like you said, it was like in New England, it was like every single night.
Yeah.
There was an awesome show, pretty much, so you could see great bands pretty much every night.
Yeah, it was crazy, and the lineups were always stacked every single time, like always. You never wanted to, nowadays you could be like, oh, I don't really know these first 2-3 bands. Like the last two are really good, but back then it was just nonstop stacked lineups, show after show, which was
I think, yeah, like talking about like, that first time when we saw Converge in Worcester, it was like after that we would be going to Worcester a ton, and it was like, seeing the Dillinger Escape Plan with like Botch, and then Caven's again playing or whatever, and you just see every awesome band, and like obviously those bands were on tour, but it was cool because they would always come to Boston, and because Converge or Cave In or ISIS or whatever was gonna be on the show, and get the locals to come, and like the fest. Like I remember there was like one of those fests at the Space. It was like, I think that was like Dillinger and fuck, I forget
Did,
now. Like
did,
just
did Harvest play? Was that the?
yeah.
It
I
was
think
like
that was
your Harvest. Barrett played. Black Army Jacket had played.
yep.
So
Ire.
Ayer played that show. Like
Yep.
that was like an amazing show. That place was packed too. I was like crushed up in the wall, like way to the side. I think I took like a few, like I had a disposable camera, so I took
Yeah.
any like little like snaps as I could. But that show was amazing.
Speaking of epic shows, were you at the one with it was like Converge and There Were Wires, and it ended up being at As the Sun Sets rehearsal studio space.
Yeah, that was at Fort Thunder. I didn't go to that show. I was going to go, and then I didn't end up going. But yeah, I heard all about that.
Yeah. Well, it's funny because I remember like me and like the other guys were there. We didn't play, but we were just there to check it out. And like it was supposed to be at Fort Thunder, but like it got something happened where like basically the show was canceled. Like everyone's outside. Oh, Catharsis. Yeah, that was the other band. That's X Adam X there. Do you remember X Adam X?
I do, yeah. And shout out the art space. He mentioned the art space too. So.
Yep. Art space, huge. But yeah, so like it was supposed to be at Fort Thunder, and then it was like the show's not happening, and I'm like, let's leave. They were trying to figure out like what to do, and I'm like, yo, we're in like Providence. It was like a school night for me. You know what I mean? I'm like, I gotta go to school, like college, I think at that point. But I was like, I get class tomorrow, and like, no, let's wait, let's see what happens. I'm like, fine, whatever. And yeah, finally they move it to As the Sun Sets space, and it was like the craziest show. Like, and that was actually on that Converge DVD.
Yeah.
That show there, I think like one song is on there, and it's like you can see I'm in the video. I'm wearing like a yellow shirt, and like all of like everyone you ever knew from like that scene. It was like, oh, there's so and so. It was crazy. Yeah, it was just, that was a crazy show. Epic.
Yeah, definitely. Now, before we like end things, I wanted to talk about graphic design for you. How did you get into that, and how's that going?
Actually, yeah, like that. Actually, how I got into graphic design is like totally like has to do with Lunacy, because I always was into like art. Like I like hated school. Honestly, I hated like just being at school. Like I was like, this sucks. I'm not interested in this. And but I loved art class. So it was like whatever, drawing, painting, like everything. But then I did this like summer school, and I had this art teacher where it was art. Basically, it was just like an art class all day long. It was like half of the day, like summer school. And it wasn't like art class at normal school, because it was like, here's all these like different mediums, like do whatever you want to do.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, whoa, I can do like linoleum block printing, like screen printing, like sculpture, things like that. And I was like, wow, like I love this. So so when like that was before the band and everything, but like that's kind of like what I love to do.
Yeah.
And but then when we started the band, I was like, I'm the singer, they're all like taking like lessons and stuff, like getting better at their instruments, and I'm like, what can I do? Like I really felt like kind of like a little useless in certain like situations or whatever, but I'm like, oh, I can like do the art, like I can like do the flyers and things like that.
Yeah.
So that sort of like became my job, like the t-shirts and everything. And so yeah, and then like that's what I did. And then when I got into Mass Art, I went to their like communication design program, and then I started doing that. And that's how I got into graphic design, basically, mainly because of the band. Like, I mean, maybe I would have like fallen into it anyway, but it was sort of like part of my job in the band was to do the design stuff, and I really enjoyed it. You know, like the album covers and like all that stuff.
Yeah.
And yeah, and then like, yeah, I've been doing it ever since. That's what I do for a career, and I've been doing it for like 20 years now, I guess, almost. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, I always wanted to ask like how you got into it and stuff like that, because it's really dope, like the stuff that you put on your Instagram and stuff like that. I like the the darker stuff that you do and that kind of the
Yeah. My Instagram is more like, that's not what I do really for like a job. That's more like what I do for fun. And if like, and if like the goal kind of that is like someone sees it and it's like, oh, can you do this cool like skull for me? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. Like that's kind of, I don't really like put a lot of like my professional work on there. Sometimes I do if it like makes sense, but like really it's more of just for me to sort of like creative exercises, things like that. Like if I'm trying out like a style or, that's kind of like what my Instagram is for, as far as like the design stuff that I post,
Yeah, definitely. Usually when I end these, I always do a rapid fire. I don't know if you've seen these, but you ready for the rapid fire?
Shit. Okay. So yeah. So I gotta just answer quickly. Okay.
Well, I mean, you can answer. It's just the questioning is rapid fire. Yes.
Okay.
My first one always is all-time favorite New England hardcore for you. All-time
hardcore band. I think I would just have to say Converge, because like what I said before, it was like seeing them back then and like what they like, the way that the crowd reacted, and then how they've like evolved, and what they've done like on the outset of the band. Like I love all of the stuff, like with Jake's graphic design, that he was like his stuff was like a big inspiration for me back then. Yeah. We gotta go quicker though, right?
No, elaborate. These are just my
okay.
You can elaborate all you want.
Yeah. And so like it's like those guys kind of like with what they did, sort of like, it seems like my taste in music kind of evolved like in a similar way. You know what I mean? Like I love that hardcore stuff that they like, the fast, like chaotic shit. Like they still do that obviously, but then like, even like the stuff with like the Blood Moon stuff, like now, like I love that stuff still. And I love like when Nate did Doom Riders, and that was cool because like Jeb was in that band at that time, and like I would just love seeing them then. And so I would say Converge, definitely.
Nice. Now, did you ever get caught up in the screamo wave that had happened? Well, it's not a wave because it's a big thing now, but I mean, it's still underground. Did you get caught up in that when it first kind of evolved?
I mean, as far as like what, like kind of like being like into it, like sort of,
yeah.
Like,
were you into the bands like say like Seisha and Orchid and You and I and
so like I never really like, I don't know if I realized like that was like a thing as it was happening. So it was more like I really liked Orchid because it was more like to me it's like I just liked it. It wasn't like necessarily like, oh, this is that screamo stuff that people are talking about, whatever. But then I remember like Jerome's Dream, like I think we might have played with them at like a show, and I was like, this band's sick, Yeah. But as far as like screamo, I didn't really. Yeah, no, I don't know. It was more just like bands that would probably fit into that category. I was like really into, like I still have like Reversal of Man, like that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I really like them.
Well, I say screamo just because that's I guess it's the only way you can kind of separate like a hardcore metalcore from like more of an emotional hardcore band, I guess you would say. Like I'm old, so I didn't know what screamo was until those bands had already broken up, and then now it's like, oh, they're the screamo kings of like whatever. But like you were saying, back then it was just hardcore. It was more of like a emotional hardcore where kids weren't really moshing. They were just kind of like, they were either spacking out or just like,
crying,
stuff like that. So tune with what you're saying for sure.
Yeah, yeah. Like it is funny to realize that like, oh, whoa, that was like a thing. And like even now it's like that term is like used a lot, you know, but it's
Yeah.
like back then, like you said, like to me it was just like there's some cool bands like that that are in, I guess, you know, coming out of this kind of this thing, you know.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I just wanted to ask if you dig those bands back then.
Yeah.
My next question: what was your first punk hardcore show you attended? Like the real show that you attended,
Like a real
like
show.
Battle of the Bands type of shit, like kind of like a real hardcore show. What was your first one that you attended?
Shit. Okay. Damn, hardcore. I'm not like we went to that like we went to that matinee at the Middle East. That was like a hardcore show, but it was kind of like it was sort of like local bands. Dude, honestly, I don't really remember. I remember seeing like back when we were kind of, yeah, this isn't hardcore, but it's like I remember seeing the first show that I saw at the Middle East, like a real show. It was like Fear Factory
Yeah,
at the Middle East,
yeah,
and then we saw like Machine Head and Corrosion of Conformity
yeah.
there, and then but like as far as like a hardcore show, I don't know. I'm like kind of blanking. I'll have to like think about that and like hit you back on that one. But
It's funny you said Fear Factory because like Fear Factory was kind of like big for me for a little while too because I was listening to like New York City hardcore, you know, Youth Crew shit. Like I was into that stuff
yeah,
a while, and then kind of hardcore had died for a little bit for me, and then you know years later that kind of it's sad to say you know that first Corn record was kind of like I was like whoa this stuff sounds kind of different like and then Fear
totally.
Factory and like Machine Head like you were saying and I was like wow these bands are pretty cool and then obviously that turned into like you know real heavy bands after that had happened but it's funny you say Fear Factory.
Yeah, because you know, I think like what happened, like I was saying, like when Lunacy first started, it was like we covered Metallica songs and like we played at like our school dances and stuff, and it was like this is great. You know, Metallica was like the heaviest thing like at the time
Yeah,
for us, and it was like because before that it was sort of like oh I'm into like Alice in Chains and like Smashing Pumpkins, you know, grunge and shit was like that was that time frame. Soundgarden I love, and then it was like whoa all those other dudes in Lunacy, they were like obsessed with Metallica, and I was like, "Yo, I love Metallica is like the band." And but then, like for me, I was like, I like I like the heavier Metallica stuff, you know, like the stuff on Master of Puppets or whatever. But then it was like getting into like, you know, using Columbia House. Like I remember I got a like a Hit Parader magazine, and it
yeah,
was like Ozzy was on the cover and it was like Pantera, Machine Head, Fear Factory, Sepultura, Typo Negative. All these bands had articles, and at the time I'm like, yo, I'm buying all of these on Columbia House.
yeah,
And I got that package and I was like, guys, like listen to all this shit that I just randomly got because they looked cool in the magazine, you know. And so I think actually like it's funny because like you were saying, you were kind of into more of like New York hardcore and stuff and like that kind of stuff. Like I never really got into that like back then because I think it was just like at that time period I was more into metal.
yeah,
But when I found like I guess what you'd call metalcore or like just like kind of like more metallic hardcore, I was like, this is it, you know?
yeah.
So I never really came from like a punk like hardcore background. I of course I like got into stuff as I sort of was like, you know, went back a little bit and it's like, oh shit, like Black Flag and like the Misfits, like these bands are awesome, you know,
Yeah.
but I really started with kind of like metal,
Yeah.
you know?
I think it could be like an age, like, I mean, I'm almost 10 years older than you are. So it's kind of that, like back then when I was a kid, that was all you had. It was like literally, like you were saying, Misfits and you know, like SSD and stuff like that, you know, Agnostic Front and stuff like that kind of stuff. And that's all I had. And that's all I was, although I still liked bands like Creator and,
Yeah.
you know, like Death Angel and stuff like that. So I always had my hand in some thrash metal. DRI was like a huge, huge band for me back then.
Yeah.
Then it just evolved into like the metalcore and then the straight up hardcore. And then I started getting into, you know, quote unquote screamo and stuff like that. So
Yeah. I bet if I was, if I started going to shows a little bit earlier, it's just like you wouldn't have been able to not see some of that stuff. Because I know, like, I would have been going to shows, and then, like, probably more like hardcore shows would just be like happening. But yeah, I think it was just kind of starting in more of like a mainstream metal like thing. It just, that's how it kind of happened.
Yeah, yeah. My next question: what was your first? What was your all-time favorite show you played personally? What meant the most to you? What was your all-time favorite show that you played live?
Damn, that's a tough one.
Or you can give me a couple. I mean, if
Yeah.
really...
Okay. So like, I'll have to give you a couple because I don't know if I could name like a number one, but like, probably that one that I mentioned about like Today Is the Day, Zayo, Nile, because it was just so funny because it was like we were like 17 and like those bands were like, oh my god, like we love those bands, and just to be able to play with these bands we looked up to was that was one of the first ones that was like, it was at the Downstairs Middle East, and we were like, oh my god, like this is cool, like that was like the first like show that we went to was at that matinee. So it was like to play on that stage with those bands was huge. So that would be one. One of them I remember too was like another big one. These are kind of like, I think some of the more memorable ones are like the bigger ones, quote unquote, just because like they seemed like a big deal. But it was like Lamb of God, Kill Switch Engage, Unearth, Kanai,
yeah,
and us. And it was kind of like, it was at the Axis, I think, or maybe Avalon, one of those before the House of Blues. And it was like, it sold out, I think. And it was just like, wow, this is like sort of like another level. Are we like ready for this kind of, it was obvious even back then that like, that was big. So damn. Oh, definitely those ones in Canada. Like those were huge because, like I said, it was like we went up there and like kids were like singing along. Like we never really got the like there were wires. Like we were always kind of like envious of those guys because they had the people just going crazy singing the words and stuff. And we're like, damn, like we gotta like write a song. Like people are gonna do that, for. But when we went to Canada, it was like that was kind of how it was, and it was just so surprising, And I don't even really remember the bands on the show, but yeah, those are a couple of the really good ones, I would think.
Yeah, Kanai is Adam, the singer, was in Ukla the Mock. He was one of the singers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
that makes total sense. Yeah, totally. We played with them a bunch of times, I think, too. Yeah.
Yeah. My next question. What was your all-time favorite hardcore punk show you attended that you didn't play, that you just went to a hardcore show? What was your favorite one that you went to see?
I think it was so I think it probably was that Converge show that I keep talking about. But again, like that one in Clinton with like Neurosis, Converge, Cave In, because again, it was like Coalesce, because like I had never seen Coalesce before that. So like actually Niall played that one too, I think. Yeah. And was it Unsane or did one of them cancel? Unsane or Brutal Truth? Like
I think Unsane canceled, or maybe they both canceled, because I know, didn't Cave In jump on the last minute or something like that?
Cave In was on it. Yeah. I kind of think it was Unsane.
It might have been. Yeah,
I think they did play. Actually, I think they played after Neurosis and
Brutal Truth that didn't play.
I think, but like seeing Neurosis, I think that was the first time I saw them.
Oh, so that's Unsane did play. So who? I know somebody like got off that bill.
I think it was Brutal Truth didn't play.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, I guess Cave In probably took that show, but some of us got mono. Oh yeah, I remember X Adam X. He was like bummed for years about not being able to make that one, but that was like up in the definitely up in the top, like because I think like Neurosis played all of Times of Grace, and it hadn't come out yet.
Yeah.
So it was sort of, I think some of their fans were like, "What the fuck? Like they're not playing anything I know." But like for me, I was like, "Holy shit!" Like all these awesome bands, like. Seeing Neurosis like was just that was like incredible, you know. So that was definitely up there. Damn, I was like thinking about. I figured you might ask something like this, and I was thinking about this earlier, but oh, maybe I was thinking like shows in general, but like, yeah, but like for that, for if you would consider that like a hardcore show, like that was it.
Yeah, I saw Coalesce at the Space when they recorded that. Do you remember the Ourselves compilation that was like the live compilation that had Converge live on it, it had Disembodied live on it, it had Coalesce live on it. I was at that show that they recorded it at the Space in Worcester, and that was a crazy show because I don't think I even knew who they were, and then I went to that show and I was like, because I went for Converge.
Yeah.
I saw Coalesce and I was like, holy shit, like,
Yeah.
who is this?
Well, I remember that the funny thing with Coalesce was like when that album Give Them Rope came out, we were in high school and like one of our buddies was like, I don't get this album. Like, and I was like, I'll trade you. I forget what it was, but it was like not as good as that album, you know? Yeah. And like, and when I heard it, I was like, whoa, like it wasn't like anything I'd ever heard. And actually like, I'm kind of surprised I was like so into it at the time because like the production was just like that kind of like, you know, like really like muffled and, but still like, I was like, whoa, like I'd never heard anything like that. I loved, like Sean Ingram's voice. Like, so that was sort of like an inspiration for me. And then when they came out with Functioning on Impatience, it was like, whoa, like this band is awesome. You know, there was like no doubt to me. Like that was sort of the album that I was like, wow, I love them.
Yeah. Hold on one second. Hey! No! Jesus. Sorry. Jack!
All good.
Yeah, I have three of them, so it's like chaos when something happens like this. You know what I mean? I'll keep going because.
Yeah, all good.
I'm a big movie guy, and I always ask this. What was the last movie you watched?
Oh shoot! Oh, the last movie was that Old, I think.
Old
Hulu. Yeah, like what's his name? M Night
Shyamalan. Yeah.
Yeah.
What'd you think of that?
It was like entertaining. You know, like me and my wife, it's like we always try to like we love watching, like that's what we do. Like watch TV and like movies and stuff like at night or whatever. And we're like, let's check it out. And you know, sometimes it's like you get kind of burned with like the streaming movies. It's like, why did I waste my time on that like Netflix movie or whatever? Yeah. But it's like it was cool. I think there were like certain things that I was like, they could have done that better, or like certain things that I was like, what? That wasn't really like explained at all. So there was like a lot of that. So I don't know, is that a good thing that I'm like kind of thinking about it afterwards? Because there's definitely been movies where I'm like, that sucked. Then it just goes out of my mind. So I guess like, even though there were things that I thought were kind of done like not great, it was like entertaining. You know what I mean? Did you see it?
I did. Yeah. I like it got shit on by but I thought it was decent. I mean, the weird like ending where you're like, oh shit, this is how this is happening. You know what I mean? I don't want for people that haven't seen it, I don't want to give it away, but that kind of surprised me at the end. I was like, oh shit, like this is kind of cool. You know, I didn't hate it. I didn't think it was like the greatest thing, but I definitely didn't hate it. So the last movie I watched was The Black Phone with Ethan Hawke, which. Everybody gave that great reviews too, and I thought that was just like, without giving it away, I thought it was just kind of like almost like a serial killer abductor, like ghost story that kind of was for dummies. You know what I mean? Because watch it, you're kind of like, I don't know. I thought it was run of the mill at best. So. Yeah.
I do appreciate your like movie reviews actually, like even if it's like not like a real review, but if you're you know, it's like a thumbs up or thumbs down, like I do see that and I'm like, yo, like Courtney, my wife, I'm like, we should maybe check that movie out. She's like, why? So who saw it? I'm like, oh, this guy I follow online, like he gave it a thumbs up. So I trust like your opinion, you know?
Yeah,
So,
it's usually a thumbs up, or I give a run of the mill. It's like a face with just like lines in it, and
I love that face. I do that like all the time when I'm like, you know, at work, like someone messages me, like, can you get me this right now? I give that face, you know?
yeah.
So,
I also asked, what's your all-time favorite horror movie?
oh shit. Damn. Horror movie. Wow. Like, it's funny, like, so I'm trying to think of it. So my daughter, she's 7. And so she's obviously too young to like to be into like horror movies, but she's into like spooky stuff. Like, so she's always interested in like, you know, like the characters like Jason, like Freddy Krueger, and like, you know, so like we go to Salem, Mass a lot, and it's like we're like looking at like in the comic book stores and stuff, and it's like, who's that? It's like, oh, that's like Chucky. You're like, what's that movie about? So like ask about the movie. Dude, I don't know. Like, I think like, I would you consider like The Thing, like, like
yeah,
a horror movie? Yeah.
yeah, definitely.
I would say that that's like, to me, is like that sort of like that kind of movie is like, I love that. It's classic. So I would say The Thing probably, yeah.
Nice.
But like Nightmare on Elm Street. But okay, so Nightmare on Elm Street, like that movie was like the first horror movie that I saw when I was like whatever 8 years old, and it like scared the shit out of me. So like that one probably is up there too, just because I remember like I never felt like that for any other movie like since, you know what I mean? Like the actual fear of that, you know, being a kid, I can like remember how scared I was, and like, you know, that kind of keeping me up at night and stuff. So that's